Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome to another video, another instalment of Revisiting, where I look back on one particular album. And we're continuing the series looking at all 5 of the original Squeeze albums released between 1978 and 1982. So the last instalment was Cool for Cats, and now we have reached the great Argybargy. The word Argybargy means a strong verbal altercation. I think it's a South East London expression. The cover was done using self-photography. So the band, each band member was given a remote control camera. I think the group shot was done like that, and also the individual shots were done like that. And then there was quite a nice inner, which had a variety of different shots done in that style. And there's the band there poking their head through a piece of wrecked paper. You've got the classic lineup: Chris Difford, Jules Holland, Gilson Lavius, Glenn Tilbrook and John Bentley, the bass player. Released on A&M, of course, in, I think it was March 1980. And this did become a bit of an iconic new wave record, really. The 2 classic hit singles from it, well, I say hit singles, they were not big hits actually. The first one was Another Nail in My Heart, which I'll show you now. And that had a replica from the album cover. This one is just black, oh no, this one is transparent vinyl. Squeeze continuing their grand tradition of novelty vinyl colourings. And Pulling Muscle, okay, so this was not a huge hit. I think it got sort of top 30, but it wasn't a big hit. And then Pulling Muscles from the Shell, the opening track, was a bit of a flop really, despite being a great single. No idea why that happened. There were certain things happening in Squeeze's career around about this time. The main thing being really that their manager, Miles Copeland, who was also managing the Police, which contained his brother, of course, Stuart Copeland, was spending more time and energy promoting the Police, and Squeeze's career started to stall commercially. They'd had these 2 hit singles from the Cool for Cats record. Cool for Cats and Up the Junction had both been number 2 singles. Neither of the 2 singles from Argybargy did as well. The album did do a little bit better. The album got to number 32, I think, then it dropped out of the charts for a little while and came back at 37. The Cool for Cats record barely scraped into the top 60, so Argybargy did do a little bit better for them in that sense, but it was a little bit worrying at the time, the fact that their chart placings in the singles chart were really starting to slip. And there were some problems developing with management, and these problems were going to go on to become more complicated as we get further into the story. So next time when we look at East Side Story, that will become more pronounced. They'd had another flop single actually before Argybargy, that being the Christmas non-hit Christmas Day, backed with a really good song, Going Crazy, actually, which is good fun. This one came out on seasonal white vinyl. Christmas Day had a really terrible video made for it. It was a sort of nativity themed video with them all dressed as the 3 kings, and it was really embarrassing. It was really terrible. There was a great quote from one of the music magazines. It was maybe it was the NME. How can a band as good as Squeeze release crap like this, was the quote. It's not a great single actually, to be fair, but it's quite good fun. So anyway, yeah, Argybargy became iconic later on as just a great new wave pop album really from that era, but there were certain problems developing around the band at this time. Chris Difford had just got married to his first wife. He and Glenn Tilbrook, the 2 songwriting mainstays, had started to fracture a little bit socially. They were no longer the friends that they had once been. Bit of a personality clash going on between them. Glenn being the extrovert character and Chris being the classic introvert, I suppose. So there were problems developing there. Also problems with Jules Holland, the keyboard player, who started to go off to the pub during the sessions because he realised that Glenn Tilbrook had very strong control over the band's arrangements. Glenn started to lay down the keyboard parts, and of course, Jules Holland being a great keyboard player, I think he felt quite shortchanged. So he started to slope off to the pub. Glenn was exerting more and more control in the studio. He and the producer John Wood took control of this record. John Wood had produced Kill for Cats. Chris Difford started to become more reluctant to sing lead. He'd sung lead on the Kill for Cats single the previous year, but now he was starting to try to step away from the spotlight a little bit, feeling a bit intimidated by Glenn. It wasn't Glenn's fault, I don't think. It was just one of those things, just a bit of a personality clash. So Chris ended up only singing lead on one full song, Here Comes That Feeling, which is quite a short song, quite an underwhelming track, really. And he also took a co-lead on I Think I'm Go-Go. And of course, he and Glenn were doing the dual vocals elsewhere, but it was significant around this time that Chris had started to shy away from the spotlight a little bit, and I think it would be to the group's detriment, really, the fact that they lost the presence of Chris Difford as a notable lead vocalist. I think that caused them to lose a little bit of their street level laddish appeal, but that was just the way things were going to go. So yeah, it was an interesting time for them. They were still coming up, they were still definitely they were on their way up, but there were certain problems developing, and yet out of it comes this really great, upbeat, fun pop album. It's one that I've always been really fond of, possibly my favourite record by them. I was about 9 years old when it came out, and it really evokes memories of the summer of 1980, which was quite a nice summer here in the UK. And I just listened to this record incessantly over and over again. You know, I absolutely loved it. And it's got a really great sequence of tracks on it. It starts with Pulling Muscles from the Shell, which is one of Chris's great lyrics. It's just a series of picture postcard tableau, really, scenes from a seaside holiday. I think it was maybe based on his experiences of being a kid in Margate, I think it was. Opens with that great line, they do it down at Camber Sands, they do it at Waikiki. Now, when I was a kid, there was no lyric sheet with this record, and I played the opening minute, or the opening few seconds of that song over and over again, trying to work out what that lyric was. There was no way I was going to be able to work it out. But the song is structured around 3 verses, which just paint these pictures of this childhood holiday, really, or an adolescent holiday. I think the idea of pulling muscles from the shell meant to be a bit of a euphemism for having it off, really. Just that great chorus, Maid Marian on her tiptoe feet, pulling muscles from the shell, behind the chalet, my holiday's complete. I love that line. I love the idea of the holiday being complete rather than the holiday being over. When I was a kid, I always used to think the holiday's complete meant it's, you've reached the end of the holiday, it's the last day and you're going home. But the word complete doesn't really mean that. It means the holiday's complete, as in, I've got my end away, it's complete. Really, really clever stuff. Great lyric, and a really great pop tune, sung by Glenn, with Chris and Glenn in the choruses doing their lead vocal. Contains a really fantastic Jules Holland piano solo. One of the few great piano moments on this record. Really good. Just an excellent single. I don't know why it flopped. Just one of those things. And then go straight into Another Nail, which is one of Chris's great heartbreak songs, really. Guy who is basically mired in sozzled self-reproach, drinking from the whiskey bottle probably as his girlfriend drives away in the family car and he's left sulking on his own. Just that great chorus. Here in the bar, the piano man's found another nail for my heart. A really nice arrangement, actually, with some marimbas played by Glenn Tilbrook across the outro, which was the suggestion of John Bentley, the bass player. Very catchy chorus, a really great little tight guitar riff at the start. And I suppose the main thing to say about it is that it just contains that absolutely classic Glenn Tilbrook guitar solo, which comes in after the first verse and the first chorus. And it's just one of the great new wave guitar solos, brilliantly evoked in the video where Glenn is seen backlit. He's a kind of silhouetted figure playing this really great guitar solo. I think it's a really great timeless single from 1980. Again, God knows why it didn't manage to gain more traction in the charts, but that was often the way with Squeeze. Great singles, underperforming, but there you go. Separate Beds, the third track, is a great Squeeze classic. It tells the story of a young couple, a pair of teenagers probably, who are trying to get it together, but they're having problems because their respective mothers don't like them. There's just a couple of really good little, I suppose you call them choruses. Her mother didn't like me, she thought I was on drugs. My mother didn't like her, she'd never peel the spuds. Always makes me laugh. But fortunately, the two fathers get on with their respective partners much better. Her father seemed to like me. I helped him fix his car. My father seemed to like her. He couldn't see the harm in going out together. It's a very moving song, it's very touching, and it has a really nice musical arrangement. It's very melodic, it just has that great Glenn Tilbrook melody. I think it marked a turning point for Chris as a lyric writer. On the Cool for Cats record, they were still very much working in that South East London idiom. As I said in the Cool for Cats review, Chris had been drinking in various South East London pubs, befriending the gangsters, you know, getting involved tangentially anyway with the South East London crime scene. In Argybargy, he moves away from that. He starts to write about aspirational characters, people living in suburbia probably. There's a couple of songs which reference going on holiday and staying in nice guest houses. In Separate Beds, there's the line about staying in a guest house overlooking the cliffs. And as I said, it's just far more aspirational. They're definitely moving away from that very earthy, gritty, and also moving away from the Benny Hill humour as well. There's a move away from that nudge wink, picture postcard, Benny Hill kind of sexual innuendo, growing up essentially as a band. And that might have been the problem. Squeeze had a kind of reputation for being a bit of a laddish band, and because they started to move away from that at this point, I think there was a perception, I think the public perception of them had started to get a bit more hazy. It was not quite clear anymore what sort of group they were, because they were becoming more lyrically sophisticated and the songs were no longer quite as immediate, and they'd lost that comedy edge, but that was just the way things were going. Misadventure actually is more like a Cool for Cats track. It's basically about a drug dealer who's dealing his way across the Middle East and smuggling drugs in the back of a van where he's meant to be selling, I think it's Moroccan carpets or something like that. That was a song that was based on Chris's experience of working with dodgy types at the Deptford docks back in his youth. It's a really great pop song actually. It's got a real kind of upbeat driving Farfisa organ part from Jules, and a really nice breakdown in the middle with some really frenetic drumming. It's a fun song. I think On Go Go at the end of side one is an absolutely beautiful song, it's very slow burn. Essentially it's all about Chris's experiences of touring in America and just having that kind of sense of homesickness and culture shock. It's got a great string arrangement from Del Newman, the string arranger who'd been known to work with Elton John in the past, and he was going to work with Squeeze again in the future. And it's got some really trippy kind of organ mini moog effect in it as well. It's a really underrated song in the canon, I think. It's a really great track. Side two doesn't get off to the greatest start. Farfisa Beat is a bit of a throwaway song, really, a bit of a novelty number, not marvellous. Here Comes That Feeling is Chris's only lead vocal on the record, and it's not a bad song. During this period, he was starting to talk to journalists about the fact that he wasn't comfortable really touring or being a touring musician. He saw it as a bit of an act, and that song, Here Comes That Feeling, expresses that really. It's not a bad song, but it's not exactly Cool for Cats. I think as Chris's only lead vocal on the record, it was a bit of a letdown. Then things pick up a lot with Vicky Verkey, which is a fast folk guitar strum song. Reminds me a little bit of the Beatles song I've Just Seen a Face. It's got that kind of fast acoustic guitar vibe to it. Brilliantly sung by Glenn. Bit of a sequel to Up the Junction probably. Tells the story again of a courting couple, probably the same couple as are in Separate Beds. Around about this time, Chris was getting into this idea that he would use the same characters in different songs. And Vicky Verkey tells the story of just this boy and this girl who are trying to get hitched, trying to make their relationship work, but they end up encountering all kinds of problems. He ends up stealing money from his mother's parking meter, gets sent to Borstal, which is a young offenders institute, was a young offenders institute in the UK. The girl gets pregnant, and all sorts of things happen, but the song has a happy ending. They go camping together. He told her in his rucksack, I think I want that chance back to be perhaps the one who will forever love you. Very poetic, and I love the line in the opening verse, with her hair up in his fingers, the fish and chip smell lingers. Really good stuff, really literary, kitchen sink style lyric writing, which Chris was so good at doing. I think at this point he was really starting to reach an early peak as a lyricist. Great stuff. Jules Holland didn't like that song though. He didn't like Vicky Verkey. He found it a bit too twee. And I think Glenn Tilbrook actually has come out in more recent times as well, saying it's not a song that he's particularly fond of, but it's a Squeeze classic. The fans all love it. If I Didn't Love You is a great romping song, and it's got a really, I don't know, really infectious feel to it with a stuttering chorus, which sort of brings to mind The Who a little bit, My Generation. It's got this sort of stuttering, if I, and again, some really great lyrics in it. He writes a verse about he's scrubbing his girlfriend's back in the bath, I think is the idea, and I think that the lyric references a soap sud stickleback navy. Just a great way with words, onomatopoeic or just very colourful vocabulary, and a very memorable song. It was a single in America, If I Didn't Love You, because they thought it would be a hit over there. I don't think it was, but it wasn't a hit in it, but it wasn't a single in the UK. Wrong Side of the Moon is another nice little Chris Difford and Jules Holland song. They'd had one on Cool for Cats, that being Hop, Skip and Jump. This one, Wrong Side of the Moon, it's not really Jules Holland's usual kind of song. It's not really a boogie-woogie bluesy thing. It's more like a little pop tune. It sounds more like something that Glenn Tilbrook would have written. A song about homesickness, sung by Jules, and it has a really great Glenn Tilbrook guitar solo in it. Jules was to leave the band after this record, and he cited the fact that he was being marginalised in the studio, and he wasn't being allowed to play some of the keyboard parts. A couple of his tracks got ditched from the record as well. One ended up on the B-side of, I think it was Another Nail, the Difford Holland song Pretty Thing ended up being on the B-side of this. It didn't get onto the record. And then a song which was, I think was a Difford and Tilbrook song, but it had a lot of Jules' piano on it, was Funny How It Goes, which got axed from the record as well. So Jules essentially started to feel like his role in the band was diminishing. And he wanted to expand his horizons, I think. But we'll talk about that when we get to East Side Story, probably. Anyway, Wrong Side of the Moon, I think, is a really nice little pop song with a great tune. And then the record finishes with There at the Top, which is a song about an aspirational office secretary who is running rings around the men in the office, basically. It was based around the story of Chris's or Glenn's former girlfriend, actually, Maxine Barker, who was the person who'd originally got Chris and Glenn together. It's got a bit of a Motown-y kind of feel to it, a really catchy riff, and again, another really good guitar solo from Glenn. Glenn Tilbrook is on fire on this record. He does some really good guitar soloing, and also it's just his usual grasp of the guitar, shading textures, and never a terribly demonstrative guitarist. He was never going to be, a kind of Eddie Van Halen, but he does some really nice playing on this record, as do all the band. Gilson Lavis and John Bentley doing a great job anchoring down the rhythm section. So just a very strong record. It deserved to do better in the charts. As I said, it got to number 32 and then came back at 37 later on. But it was a bit of an artistic high watermark. Some people say that East Side Story was the greater album, which is the one that was produced by Costello, of course. But probably is fresher. It's got a fresher, more sprightly, pure pop kind of sound to it. And they're not quite starting yet to branch off to do certain things that they were going to do later. They got more into blue-eyed soul and country music. This was still them, definitely in prime 1980 new wave pop territory. So there we go. That was Argybargy. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of that great record from 1980 by Squeeze. Thanks for watching. I will be back soon to look at East Side Story. Take care and bye for now.